Hi all, I am coming to you today because I wanted to do a really quick tutorial on how to map your relationships, your most significant relationships on your hand, right? And so what I'm going to show you, not many palm readers rely on. This is just one indication of how to map the relationships, but if you really want to have more accuracy, you can always look in the hand at the lifeline. That the lifeline is what it wraps around the thumb. But I always really like looking at what I'm going to show you because it shows you relationship patterns, which could also be important as well, right? So, and granted, for some people, this could be like spot on accurate when we go through the ages. So when we look at this area of the palm, you want to start with the dominant hand, right? So the dominant hand is the hand that you write with. It is your active hand. It is the hand that also changes the most, right? And so just taking a look here. This is my dominant hand. Most people are right-handed, but if you're left-handed, that also says something about you. And when we think about where the relationship lines are, we're taking a look at this area right underneath the pinky, right? So this is the pinky. We're looking at the percussion of the hand underneath the pinky. This is the percussion, the end, right? So the distance between the pinky and this large line right here, this is your heart line. So the distance between the pinky and the heart line is going to have a few lines in between. So I'm folding my hands like so you can see some of my lines. I have 3 that are visible on this video, and these 3 lines are indicating how many relationships I would have. It's one indication, and for accuracy you can always look at the lifeline, but when we're looking here, we can also determine some ages, right? And we can determine some similar relationship patterns. So if you're taking a look at the space closest to the heart line, any lines that show up closest to the heart line, so if there's a line here, this indicates younger years. I always say that if it is really close to the heart line, it could represent teenage years or early adolescence. So if a relationship line were to be like really close to the heart line, this area that I'm pointing to with my nail, that would be around 12, right? And then as you go up, you'll get to the late teens about here, and somewhere a third way up, you have the early 20s, right? So early 20s. I find that for many people born in the west of the western part of the world, midway between the heart line and the pinky, midway is the late 20s. Now, if you look at a Palmistry textbook, they would state that the midway point is the mid 30s, right? Like around 35. I find that midway point is 28, 27. And that is really just from asking people. Also, I have to ask people because most of the times when I'm reading relationship lines, I am asking questions because the accuracy really does come from inside the lifeline. So if I'm going to read these lines here, I have to ask questions about first, second, and third major love, right? If there is a third. And when I ask questions about the quality of the relationships, because in each line, you can see if there is a break in the line, if there is an island, if the line is really smooth and long, right? All of this leads into relationship quality. Now, just going back to the timing, right? So for Westerners, right, I would say middle of the spacing is 28. Anything above that midway point is going to be the 30s. I would say 3/4 of the way up is going to be the 40s going into the 50s. And anything up here is later on in life. So that could be the 60s or the 70s. And when I say up here, I mean that last quarter. So after 3/4 of the way up this spacing, that's going to be the 60s or 70s. And some people have lines there, right? Some people have very deep lines there. And again, you can always check within the lifeline for accuracy. Okay. So I have about 3 lines here. And I remember when I first started reading palms, I was obsessed with these lines. I was like, when are my marriages going to be? When are my relationships going to be? Now, granted, in a palmistry textbook, it will say your deepest, strongest line is most likely marriage, right? But we have to really think about how the palms do not have a marriage contract or license on there. So when you say the deepest, strongest line, you are really talking about the quality of the relationship, and you're not talking about a marriage contract, because people really want to know, when is the one coming? When is my soulmate, my twin flame? When is that person arriving? And really, I like to focus in on the quality of the lines when people ask me that question. Because if you think about reality, some people could be married to people who they don't have, right, like a good quality of the line, right? The line could be thin, the line could be broken. They could be married to that person around that age that you mentioned. Because I also like to read this spacing here, I also like to say that you can plus or minus 2 to 3 years. Now, many palm readers just are against this spacing because of how sporadic the accuracy is. And palm reading is all about accuracy because it is a science. There's 4,000 years of information that backs up palmistry as a science. And so as a science, the accuracy behind this little spaced area is not that accurate. For me, I would say about 60% of readings have accuracy when I say plus or minus 2 years. Now, the issue comes in when someone has been married for the past 15 years and I tell them that they have 2 major relationship lines and this is the only person that they've been with. People are not trying to hear that. So what I would say is, if you are a palm reader that doesn't want to take a risk or a chance, you can look at the lifeline. But I've spent many years just really studying and asking questions about that little area because I do feel like it holds valuable insight into the quality of relationships. And I think it's important to talk about the quality of lines because it helps people grow, right? So if someone has an indication on a relationship line and they want to have a stable relationship, most people, if not everybody, wants to be in a stable, loving relationship. And if that's not what their palm lines are saying in that little area, to me, it doesn't matter so much the age at which the lifeline is showing accurately, because the quality of that relationship in this area is going to say that you need to work on it. Like, you need to consistently work on this relationship. And I also think it's important because, right, palm lines can change, and it's important to always start off a reading saying that palm lines can change and this is not set. So just because you have this relationship in your 40s where your palm says there's going to be breaking up and getting back together doesn't mean you can't change that path, change that fortune, right? So this is the reason why in my practice I tend to focus on that spacing between the pinky and the heart line. If you want to be super duper accurate, you can take a look at the lifeline. If you want to know more about the lifeline, I am going to be doing a palmistry course at Minka Brooklyn starting February 22nd. It's going to be a 4-week course, and we go over the minor lines in week 3. So we'll be in the month of March by the time we go over the minor lines. And that is when we start talking about implications on the lifeline. So if you like this video, go ahead and share it with your network, right? Let's get more people interested in palmistry. Palmistry is a really practical tool, a really practical divination tool, right? You don't need to purchase any cards. You don't need to purchase any sort of divination tool. Everything is in the palm of your hand. And if you get really good at being a palm reader, you can map out your path, your destiny to months. First, it'll be years, then it'll be months, and some people can do weeks, right? Those are people who are deep in palmistry and all they do is palm reading. So until next time and the next palmistry video.